All right, we're back from a 2-week hiatus and ready to talk BYU sports again. Spring is in the air, which means baseball, softball, and more football. The Batcats ran over UVU 14-2 on Tuesday in the Crosstown Clash and are currently in Malibu taking on Pepperdine this weekend. Softball upset number 13 Baylor at the LSU round robin last week and are in Tempe at the ASU Invitational this weekend.
Number 2 men's volleyball resumed play after their bye week and fell in 5 sets to number 14 Concordia Irvine last night after blowing a 2-0 lead. They play number 13 Grand Canyon tomorrow night at the Smith Fieldhouse. Lastly, number 21 Gymnastics took second at the MRGC Championships in Cedar City last week and received an invite to the NCAA Regionals in Salt Lake City on April 7th.
Now, before we get to football, there have been some recent developments with BYU basketball that could affect the offseason and roster going forward. Yoeli Childs announced he is putting his name in the NBA draft but will not hire an agent, leaving the door open for a return to BYU. So, talking about Yoeli real quick, do you think he's played his last game for BYU, Josh? And what are kind of the reasons that would sway you to think either yes, he's done, or no, he's not going to go in the draft, he's going to come back for another year?
Yeah, I'm hopeful it's just him testing the waters. And again, he hasn't hired an agent, so he still has eligibility. But just kind of comparing it with Mika's timeline, it's about the same in terms of had a pretty good season, some good games, good solid numbers. He's averaging 18 points, 2 blocks, and about 10 rebounds there. And so hopefully it's him just putting his name out there, being able to get some solid feedback from NBA scouts to say, here are the 2 or 3 things you really need to work on if you want to take it to the next level. That gives him a whole summer to work on it, come back next year, and really implement it and show where he's gotten to, and then hopefully improve his draft stock, and then potentially go from there. But that's what we all said with Mika, right?
Right.
And so he could get an invite to the NBA Combine, which is May 16th through 20th in Chicago. If that were to happen, I'd start getting a little more nervous at him potentially going overseas because, a 6-figure offer to play basketball anywhere, I would take that over staying in college at any point. So I definitely think that it feels more like he's coming back. And you have to remember, Mika had the tie to Italy with his wife, both of them serving their missions there. An offer to play there was just kind of a dream scenario for him. Why not take it at that point? Yoeli doesn't have that tie. And I really feel like with this group, there's just that one more year, stay together, and you could do something pretty solid next year.
No, definitely. I think that kind of like team aspect and just the way that this group this year kind of, rallied around each other and played a little more as a team than we've seen maybe in previous years. That is definitely one of the reasons, that I would think that he would want to stay, especially having not gotten to the NCAA tournament either of his years at BYU. You think maybe he'd want to come back and achieve something like that, especially if Elijah Bryant comes back as well. I think that'd be a big pull for him to, want to put together another special run next year. As far as his numbers go, definitely don't jump off the page quite as much as Mika's did. You could argue, that Mika was definitely the focal point of the offense last year. He didn't have a healthy Elijah Bryant to help him out on offense, whereas this year, Eli and Yoeli kind of shared the load a lot on that end of the ball. So, if we had been more dependent on Yoeli, he probably could have put up bigger numbers. There's definitely an argument for that. But, he's super young. He's 20 years old still. He would, as far as I know, be the youngest BYU basketball player to, go professional if he were to do that after this season. Mika was 22 last year. So, there are a lot of reasons either way. If he does hire an agent, then he can't come back to college. So that would be definitely a big red flag. I believe he has until May 30th to decide officially if he's going to go forward with the draft or not. And do you think is it worth mentioning Elijah Bryant and his professional outlook at this point?
I feel it's almost the same boat. Like, their numbers are pretty much identical. 18 points. Elijah was 6 rebounds per game. So solid. Like, you can tell that they definitely were 2 of the big 3 that the offense ran through, like you mentioned. But again, there's not a lot of hype around him. There's not a lot of interest, I would say, compared to where Mika was at. Right. And like you mentioned, age-wise, they're still young. Mika it's kind of now or never on top of the offers. And so I don't see him going either. But, if he talks with Yoeli and he says, hey, I'm thinking about leaving, does that play into decision-making, whatnot? You would think so, but at the same time, I could see Elijah saying, hey, come back, let's keep this group together. And with that captain leadership mentality that he's had, it'll be their time, right? You'll lose a couple, well, you won't lose any seniors, but you'll just have that extra year to stay together and just get it together, keep that core intact, and make a run to the big dance.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, whatever these two decide to do will have a great, effect on how this roster looks heading into the offseason, heading into next season. Over this next month or so, I think we're really going to see kind of how that shakes out and what we're going to see as far as, personnel with BYU basketball. And with Pro Day, let's talk about Fred Warner for a second. He's definitely like the biggest name as far as BYU football goes heading into the NFL draft this year. What is his, what's the ideal outcome for Fred when it comes to going into the NFL? And then what do you think is maybe like a more realistic option for where he ends up and what kind of, where he goes in the draft maybe?
Yeah, no, USA Today has Warner. They had an article with him. They rated him they called him the most underrated linebacker in the draft. And right now, after some of the Pro Day stats there, the NFL mock draft on the draft's website has him going 4th to 5th round, and I think that fits. The biggest thing is you look back at now, you've got Kyle Van Noy, Harvey Lange, Taysom Hill. They've just kind of flew under the radar during their college years, had impressive showings at Pro Day, really impressed leading up to the draft, and then either a late pick or a free agent signing, and have had success since then. So I think scouts have to catch that, and they know that you've got 2 or 3 gems that come out of BYU almost annually now. And so given that, recent success from the defensive players from BYU with Van Noy and Lange, I think some scouts got to say, okay, we got to pull the trigger and get this guy before he slips to a unrestricted free agent and then gets picked up by the Patriots.
Exactly.
And so I think he'll get picked 4th, 5th round, really fits. Maybe could get up into the end of the 3rd round with a good Pro Day. So we'll see how that goes, but I definitely think he'll hear his name called. Yeah,
I had heard, maybe the Cowboys and the Broncos had a little bit of interest in Fred. He did not participate in the typical drills today at Pro Day, like the 40-yard dash and vertical and stuff like that. He did all that at the NFL Combine a couple weeks ago, so he's just going to stick with those numbers. He did participate in a couple of agility drills.
So, yeah.
Pretty confident in the numbers you put up at the Combine?
Yeah, I was pretty confident, and I thought I did well enough to where I could just focus on those drills today.
What's it like being around all of the other guys, watching them put up some good numbers?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it's just good being around those guys again, we got pretty close this past season, just how things went, and it's just good to see them back, and have them have some success out here.
Anybody jump out at you, just impress you?
I mean, it wasn't impressive because I already knew he was going to do it, but Jonah, of course, Jonah doing his thing out there. Tijon did great. I mean, a lot of guys did really good out here, like always, so I was proud of those guys.
Who surprised you most out of all your teammates today?
I thought Tanner Baldry did really well. Tomasi being out here again, that was really great to see him. He did really well, especially in those position drills. Everybody did really well.
Have you communicated with anyone in the pros telling you what to expect throughout this process?
Oh, yeah, I've communicated with, all 32 teams when it comes to scouts.
Other BYU players.
Oh, the BYU players, yes. I've talked to Harvey, I've talked to Kyle Van Noy a lot. We're really close, and Jamal and Rob Daniel Bronson, those guys are back training over here, so I talked to those guys. So yeah, I'm talking to them. They helped me out a lot.
What is it like seeing Trav and those guys coming back that weren't able to, kind of make that step last year due to injury or other reasons and see them back here today?
Oh, it's great. Just those guys were warriors on the field. When it came to actual football and playing here at BYU, and so just for them to be out here and show off for the scouts, I'm happy for them.
Since you've graduated from BYU, what are the main technique things you've been working on in preparation for the NFL?
So I'll be making the transition from outside to inside, so that's probably the biggest thing, and kind of working on shedding blocks, a lot of sled work and watching film on guys who play that position. So that's probably what I've been doing most.
Have you gotten specific interest from any teams specifically reaching out? You said you talked to just about everybody.
So. Yeah. At the Combine, you have formal interviews with certain teams that last 15 minutes, and it's just a quick interview. You meet all the guys. And I've had private workouts. I have workouts planned where I fly out to them. So, it'll probably take too long to list them all. So I'll just say
not a bad position to be in.
Oh, absolutely. It's great to be wanted, and I'm the one who's I have to put my best foot forward to them. It's a business now. So.
Last year, I think Jamal ran the 40 here to kind of boost what he did in the combine. Did you feel like the combine numbers were good enough that you really didn't have to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I received feedback about how I did, and you know, in a perfect world, I mean, I'm a perfectionist. I wish I could have done perfect and everything, but you know, I did well enough to where I didn't have to worry about that stuff. Because with how late our pro day is and the 40, you have to continually train and work on that specific drill. I wanted to just work on football specific stuff.
What's it been like these last few months preparing for the next step in your football career?
It's been crazy. It's been a whirlwind. You know, just with how hard we trained these last few months back in California with who I trained with, it was. I mean, we went hard at it, and it showed in our results. And you know, I'm happy with how I've done so far. I just hope to keep putting my best foot forward for these teams.
You touched on this, but what's the next step in the process for you?
Next step in the process is just getting shape, getting football shape now, because right after the draft we have rookie mini camp, and I mean, from what I heard, you take all the reps and you better be in shape, or else you pop a hammy, or you know, you don't want to get behind. So doing that, taking those visits to teams, and yeah, it's getting better.
Chargers, your favorite team growing up?
Cowboys were.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Why?
It was my dad's favorite team, and I kind of adopted from him. Yeah.
You didn't like the hometown team that much?
Yeah, I mean, I was a fan. You know, I'm a fan of any football team, but that was my team, Cowboys.
Any particular team kind of stand out that's shown you a little more love in the last couple months, maybe, than any others?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, this whole process, you talk to so many teams, and I mean, look, you could talk to teams a lot throughout the whole process, but that doesn't mean they're going to draft you. You know, you could not talk to a team the whole entire time. They've seen all they needed to see, and they like what I bring to the table, and they might draft me. So, yeah, no specifics.
Who'd you pick as an agent?
Justin Schulman, you know, best agent in the business. So, yeah.
Why him?
He's actually Kyle Benoit's agent, so that's how I kind of found out about him and got put on with him.
What's the weirdest thing you've been asked by an NFL team or personnel or anything like that?
The weirdest question?
Yeah, is there something that jumped out like, okay?
I mean, you get asked some weird things at the combine. I don't know. Sometimes the way teams phrase things, they try and get a reaction out of you when they ask different questions. They don't really care about your answer. I can't really think of anything specific right now. So I mean, one team asked me like, how does my water run, or how does my pond run? I don't know. I didn't really understand. He had to explain it to me. So it was different. I don't know. But yeah.
You talk about your brother Troy and his recovery and what BYU fans can expect from him and his recovery this season.
Yeah, I mean, he's recovering great. He looks really good right now. He's staying out of spring ball just to heal up more. He'll be ready for fall. And, I mean, you could expect him to be full go for when the season comes. And he's got to be the guy this year. I mean, it's a junior year, and he's got to perform and be the guy.
Think Micah Simon will do anything this year?
Probably not. No. Oh, Micah Simon! Wow, look, he's right here. He better do something. He better be, BYU's all-time leading receiver this year. I mean, that's the expectation we have in my household. We're roommates, and so what's up?
I heard from a source that the hardest part of your training in California was that you couldn't live without Micah and Troy. Is that true?
I don't know where you got that source from. You need to tell him to take a hike. So fake news.
Does Micah need to cut his hair?
It's getting kind of long. I don't know, that BYU honor coach. Hey, but yeah, no.
Thinks he's Elijah Bryant.
yeah. Elijah is pretty wild right now. So yeah.
What's the best way to reach? When you get drafted, what's the best way to reach you? Go through your agent, or?
Yeah, that'd probably be best. But yeah, it's a crazy process right now. So we have different people trying to spread it out a little bit. So.
Have they given you any idea where you might go, what round?
I mean, it could be anywhere from second round to fifth round, or maybe I don't know. So it's up in the air.
What's going to be your first major purchase?
First major purchase? You know what? I've been asked that question a couple times now. I honestly, every time I get asked, I don't know. I actually need to sit down and think about that, because I mean, I haven't really thought about that part of the whole thing. I'm worried about the football stuff.
We did see a little bit from other players from BYU at Pro Day today, namely Jonah Trinnaman. We saw some surprising numbers from him. You want to talk about him for a second, Josh?
Yeah, no, he definitely was the don't want to say surprise, but the highlight coming out of Pro Day.
Yeah.
A 4.3 and then a 4.31 40-yard dash and a 40.5-inch vertical, both of which would have ranked number 1 among wide receivers at the NFL Combine this year. So really impressive numbers.
And I'm pretty sure his 40-yard dash time was the fastest.
Period.
It would have been the fastest among any player.
Yeah, the official one, with
4.3.
That's nuts. And the side question that's come out of that is, how does BYU keep having these athletes like Trinnaman, Hill, Van Noy impress so much, and yet they're almost underutilized, especially Trinnaman for the past couple of years, just didn't really put up great numbers. But you see these results, and you can't argue that it was a lack of effort and athleticism on his part. So definitely some thoughts that are kind of circling this team right now after the last couple of years. You've got these stellar athletes. If we can take advantage of them, how much better could the team be? Also, why hasn't that happened?
No, totally. And I mean, you mentioned that, over the past couple of years, several, gems, as you said, have come out of BYU football, and through development, with NFL teams, have turned these great players like Taysom. We got Jamal Williams, who had a fantastic rookie year. He was obviously very good at BYU as well. But we got Kyle Van Noy and several other players who, as you mentioned, might have been a little underutilized here at BYU. So I think it's just a matter of realizing their potential a little earlier on, and having the wherewithal to develop these guys and take advantage of them while they're here at BYU. Well, that's all we have for our DU Sports podcast for this week. Come back next week as we talk about a little more about spring football and get ready for the spring scrimmage at LaVell Edwards Stadium. Thanks for joining.